All right, welcome into a playoff crossover edition. Patriots Beat Patriots Daily. Alex Barth, Brian Hines, Taylor Kyles, Mike Kadlick with you here on this Tuesday, kind of resetting, heading in to Conference Championship Week, which that is right, the Patriots will be a part of as they visit the Denver Broncos on Sunday. Gentlemen, this is real. Patriots are one win away from a Super Bowl. Even Taylor, who underestimated the Patriots with 13 wins back in the summer, I think, would have said that this is at worst a best case scenario, maybe beyond a best case scenario. But I guess, Taylor, we'll start with you there. Just your initial reactions to that game against the Texans and the team being at this point.
It was impressive.
Not initial, lasting reaction. Not initial.
Last thing is that it's nice to see. It's nice to see the rest of the team can carry Drake May when he plays poorly. I think that's the biggest thing. Is this was a game where sometimes Drake will struggle, but when you look at the tape, you forgive some things that were more positives than you realized. This was a game where I thought he was loose with the football. He was inaccurate, and obviously weather plays a big part in that. I feel like I need to realize that I'm spoiled by watching Tom Brady in cold weather, and that very, very few quarterbacks are actually consistent. But the fact that the defense was so dominant and was able to create so many of their own opportunities, and the special teams was so stout, that was good to see, because I think this is going to be another week against the Broncos where the defense and the special teams are really going to have to lead the charge.
Mike.
Yeah, sorry, I think I'm delayed. You guys got me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Am I on time?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Initial reactions. A couple days out reactions that this defense has completely turned a corner since, midway through the season, where they obviously came out and started red hot with their, unbelievable run defense to start the year. And that kind of got tripped up a little bit down the stretch. Now, we talk about this Patriots team hitting a hiccup with that Buffalo game where they kind of, blew the lead, had the lead and then blew it. But they've really been, lights out across the board for a majority of the season. And I think, last Sunday just continued to put that into high gear. And kind of like you said, Taylor, the fact that Drake May was able to put the ball on the ground 4 times, and even not, after the, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. I keep thinking you guys are in and out, but after the way that that game started and CJ Stroud and them kind of got a lead with the 10-7 lead, the Patriots were able to rebound it and get back after it there. So the way, again, they were able to carry Drake despite turnovers and not scoring on the opposite turnovers, was huge for the Patriots. And now we move on to, one more game here at least.
Brian, your lasting takeaway from Patriots-Texans.
Yeah, it's still the defense. Like, I thought down the stretch, getting Milton Williams back, getting Robert Spilling back, Kyrus Tonga, that would make a big difference. But I didn't see it making this big of a difference where they were going to be this just elite, dominant unit. They've given up 1 touchdown drive, and it was a short drive that started at the 27-yard line after a fumble. I mean, the red zone stuff, the goal-to-go stuff, like all of it has just been completely flipped. They've been a dominant unit, and that's allowed them – we're going to talk about these fumbles, like that's allowed them to overcome some mistakes from Drake May and stuff. So just the fact that they have just completely flipped the script and then this just dominant unit to start the postseason, and they're going to need that again, certainly, because, I don't think the Denver defense, we're also going to talk about that. Like it's going to be a struggle to put up points still, but I think they're going to need another dominant showing from the defense again.
Yeah. So that's a good way to kind of set the table for everything we're going to talk about here on the show, kind of both looking back at the Texans win and looking ahead to the Broncos. But I think the big thing is, as well as the Patriots played, the turnovers are still a problem. And, we're not going to do the Bills fan thing and say, well, just ignore them and everything's okay, because, well, look what happened to the Bills. They're out of the playoffs. So, it is a factor. Obviously, Drake May made some good plays outside of the fumbles. And he did have time to throw at times outside of the fumbles, but that really, they should have probably put up 40, 50 points in that game if they just could have held on to the football. Mike, are you more worried when it comes to the turnovers and fixing them? Because the other jarring thing here is throughout the regular season, we talked about this a lot. Drake May would struggle with something, and the next week he'd fix it, and then it really wouldn't be a problem again. He wasn't a mistake repeater. This is 2 weeks in a row, similar problems for him in the offensive line. Are you more worried about May or more worried about the offensive line as it relates to the Texans game and then moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, Texans game moving into Denver, I think the offensive line was obviously, an issue specifically on Will Campbell's side. That pressure that got to May, almost instantly and had him coughing up the football. But the May angle of it is probably what, makes me wonder a little bit more. I don't know if it's necessarily worrisome, but I mean, the fact that it's 2 games in a row that he's had multiple turnovers, multiple times, putting the football on the ground like that, in inclement weather, I kind of started to float it on our show yesterday with Taylor. And now I'm not going to sit here and say that, May is a puddle or a pumpkin in the cold or everything, but he talks about it a lot. This team wants to, let teams come in here and play in the cold and be the better team in the cold. And, so far, at least over the last couple of games, he hasn't lived up to the standard that he's talking about just yet. So it will be another test in Denver. I do think that, again, it's impossible to, not, I think, split the baby on blame here, given the fact that the pass rush for Houston was elite and May just couldn't hold on to the football. It's a little bit of both here. But moving forward, I want to see how we can play a third time in a row in a tough environment here, especially against Denver, before I make rash judgments. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to hold on to the football. You're the quarterback. And, I heard actually Greg Bedard, a friend of the program, who we were talking about it on on Felger Maz earlier. It was a quote that Bill Belichick used to always say: when you have the football in your hands, you're not just holding the franchise in your hand, you're holding the entire region in your hands, and it's your responsibility to hold on to it no matter what happens around you. So, in theory, you got to put it on the quarterback. So I lean Drake right now, but both have been pretty tough the last couple of weeks.
Brian.
Yeah, I think both. You have to give some blame to both. And like on the offensive line, Will Campbell has not been good since he's come back, especially the last 2 weeks. It doesn't help that, he's against Will Anderson, who's just a freak, one of those, he got off the football in like 0.41 seconds, I believe it was. And any offensive tackle in football is going to have a hard time with that. But I think most of it, to me, especially watching this Texans game back, it kind of falls on Drake. There are times where I don't even know where he's going to throw the football downfield, and he's kind of just like uncorking one when the pressure in the pocket's kind of caving in on him, and then making a bad play worse with the miscommunication with Ramondre, and instead of just kind of eating that one, then he gets the ball punched out. And the one that was really alarming, and they were lucky this one got recovered by Campbell, was he's drifting into Morgan Moses, right? Like drifting in the pocket to his right, and then the ball gets hit, and Will Campbell recovers on the goal line. You go back to his rookie year, that's some stuff you saw in his rookie year where he's kind of drifting a bit in the pocket. So I think definitely in that Texans game, again, Will Campbell was not good. He needs to be better. A couple good edge rushers again in Denver here, but I would say for the most part that one was on Drake on Sunday.
Taylor.
I'm going to say Drake, because when you talk about stuff that gets you beat, like sacks definitely don't help, but fumbles fall much deeper into that category. And the most alarming thing is that the Will Anderson sack, I think everybody in the region or on the beat is on the same page. That one Will Anderson sack where he gets off the ball before, Will Campbell has a chance to blink. We'll give those guys, a bit of we'll give them a pass for those. But the fact that Drake fumbled so many times and had one hand on the football, where like the one where he falls forward, he takes his hand off the ball. Can't do that, or times where you're thinking about throwing the ball and you have to feel that edge pressure off your left side and you're still trying to throw it. Sometimes it's the internal clock, and sometimes it's just having to feel that backside pressure. And, he's young. I've never played quarterback, so I try to have some understanding for that. But this is, I think, a better pass rush for the Broncos because they're good the whole way down. It's not just on the edges. So he's got to be better about protecting the football, knowing when to eat it. We give him the caveat of, he's got to learn what he can and can't do. But like you said, Alex, you're repeating mistakes. And at the same time, I will continue the trend of the offensive line deserves some blame too. And the theme here is that it's the young guys, where Morgan Moses pitches a shutout against Daniil Hunter. Phenomenal performance from him, moving guys on the ground with Mike Kadlick. Like that right side has been fantastic. Garrett Bradbury pitched a shutout. He's also been very good. Feels like Josh is really starting to figure out how to weaponize him in the run game. But when we talk about the offensive line struggling, the first game it was Jared Wilson against the Chargers because they had Tyler Tart, who is a really unique style of player. And obviously last week you had Daniil Hunter. Now, these are rare talents, and Will Campbell's not going to see anybody that's like Daniil Hunter exactly. So, I'm not terrified, but still, Nick Benito and all these guys are very talented. So I'm worried about the young players on this offense in general. Throw Travion Henderson into the mix, frankly, because there was a very stark contrast between when he was on the field and Ramondre was on the field. And even on one of Travion's best runs, he kind of glitches and makes a move in the backfield with no one around him, and the offensive line having created all this push. It's still a positive run, but it feels like he's kind of doing a lot of things unnecessarily. So really more than one side, my biggest concern is Drake man the fumbles, but also it's whether these young guys can adapt quickly and not make repeat mistakes themselves as well.
So, and I'll pull this comment up because it's a fair call out. The comment says, guys, Drake played a good game, 3 touchdowns. He's okay. You sound like we lost. This is where we are. You know, when you're coming off a 4-win season and it's a rookie quarterback and the roster's not there, like, yeah, you're looking at the positives. This is a team that has a chance to go to and win the Super Bowl. Like, the expectations have shifted, and this is just where we're at. You know, we're not talking about positive signs anymore. We're talking about playing a complete game so they can continue to advance in the playoffs and hopefully get a championship. And along those lines, I'll ask a follow-up here, and we can do this real quick. So I think we all agree, and I'm with you guys, the fumbles are more on May than on the offensive line. One thing I'll add, there's times, and May's not alone in doing this. Credit to Keegan Stiefel from Nesson, who pointed this out the other day, and I think it's a good observation. When you know that heat's coming, when the quarterback knows there's somebody behind him bearing down, you got to change your throwing motion and get the ball out quick. And Drake has this habit of, like, and this was one of the fumbles last week, he's still going to load all the way up and try to throw it deep, and you just don't have the time for that, or frankly, the range of motion to bring the ball as far back as he wants to bring it. Not that there's anything wrong with his delivery in jet. Like, I think his delivery is fine, but kind of like in basketball, if the shot clock's running down, you're not going to take your full jump shot. You have to kind of alter it. And that's something there. So I think we all agree more Drake than the line on the fumbles, but it's on everybody when it comes to the fumbles. So just quick follow-up. We can go down the line here. Which unit or guy, I guess, do you trust to clean it up quicker and like rebound faster, especially for this game? Drake, May, or the offensive line?
I could start. I'll say Drake because we have seen him improve and not make these repeat mistakes. Now, the fumbles are the one mistake that I feel like has popped up consistently throughout the season. He'll go like 2 or 3 weeks where it doesn't happen, but it still has been a recurring problem since he was a rookie. So there is that fear. I'm not saying he's necessarily going to turn it around, but when you talk about like Will Campbell getting walked back, that's kind of been a consistent theme. And with his knee, who knows how much of that is actually fixable? And with the interior, sometimes just Jared Wilson also being inexperienced and young in his craft, whereas May has shown that he can look like an MVP candidate when he doesn't make some of the kind of more foolish and avoidable mistakes. So I'll go with Drake, but at the end of the day, it's a matter of actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, Brian?
Yeah, I would agree. I would go with Drake for a lot of those same reasons. We've seen him, correct a lot of those mistakes, and the fumble seems to be like that last thing he's trying to get over and correct. So we have to see it. But, when it comes to Will Campbell, like, I get it's Will Anderson, but the way he's losing has been kind of how he's lost consistently throughout the year, speed around his corner and on the edge there. So I would lean and be more confident down the stretch here, these last game or two, that Drake would correct those issues.
Mike?
Yeah, it's Drake. That's the easy one with, the way Will Campbell and that, left side, they're rookies, like Taylor said. And, I know Drake's only in his second year, but we've seen him rebound, from mistakes in the past. He didn't do it last week. This is the week to finally do it. So learn from the mistakes, hold on to the football, keep 2 hands on it, what have you. And as far as the offensive line goes, there's thoughts or wonderings whether they should, bench Will Campbell, bring in Darian Lowe. Like, I think you keep it that way. Keep it simple, stupid, roll with what you've had for the entire season, and let Drake make the turnaround and fix his mistakes here.
Yeah, I'm with you. And look, with Campbell, I think Campbell's going to, big picture, be okay. He'll have another year to develop next year, full season full season in an NFL offseason program. His knee's probably not 100%. I talked about this with David Andrews on my podcast with him on Monday. That right leg, that plant leg, how that can impact him, and all that. But that's not going to get fixed in time for Sunday, and it's not going to get fixed in time for the Super Bowl if they make it there. So there needs to be some improvement. What I will say is Will Anderson is, it's top 5 pass rusher in the league for sure. I don't know if it's top 3 fair. We know he's not number 1, but top 3. He's not Myles Garrett. He's in the conversation for the next guy after Myles Garrett. Not going to face somebody like that again. Doesn't mean he's not going to face good rushers. He will again this week. We'll get to that in a minute. Like, Nick Benito's a good player too. As was Khalil Mack, future Hall of Famer, albeit up there in age. So it is going to get a little bit easier. They're going to have to kind of manage Campbell and Wilson, I think, down the stretch here, which they can do. I thought Josh McDaniels maybe could have done a little more, especially once it became clear early that it was becoming a problem. And I trust Josh McDaniels to figure that out. But I think like moving forward, they'll be in better shape. Yeah.
One thing that's kind of an interesting point is even Will Campbell admitted and has admitted that some of his worst reps came when he had or was supposed to have chip help. So that kind of complicates this conversation where the strip sack where Will Campbell just beat him clean around the edge was a concept. It's not like a deep drop back. It's one where Drake can get the ball out quickly, but obviously that's just an immediate loss. But that doesn't happen super often. I think it is kind of those power rushes. So when he does get the chip help, when we talk about, all right, give him that extra assistance. Well, if it doesn't work for him, then what do you do? You know what I'm saying? I think that we kind of default to that, but I don't think that's the easy fix that we think. And another reason why him being a rookie matters. It might take an offseason before he's able to maybe rep that a little bit more and get comfortable. And, you know, Travion as well when he's in there and has to provide that chip help. So I think the moving pocket thing is something that we could talk about a little more. And I think that I understand why people were upset, and I would agree. But the chip help, maybe it works for Morgan because he's pretty great regardless of the circumstance. But with Will, I just don't think it's as easy a fix as it's sometimes talked about.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the draft and the arm length thing. Like nobody's ever going to give him the benefit of the doubt because of that. And look, maybe the time comes where we have the conversation about he should go inside to guard. One game against Will Anderson is not worthy of, you tell me where they're getting the better left tackle. We'll have the conversation. Exactly. I'll wait. Right. You're not you're not downgrading at left tackle just because you want to get a win on Twitter. That's where I'm at.
I do wonder, like, to Taylor's point, how much chip help has Will Campbell had in his football career? Probably not a lot, right?
Not a lot, yeah.
The best player probably anytime he's been on the field, for most times at LSU even. So maybe that is something that you just need that much experience in a full offseason to kind of get that under your belt.
Is this something I talked about with David Andrews back at the beginning of the season? Some tackle, like Trent Brown used to hate chip help.
Didn't like it, yeah.
Because you're setting up a certain way and you're basing your attack a certain way that help is going to be there and do a certain thing. And if the back or the tight end misses the chip, now you're going to get beat clean and look bad, even though you didn't necessarily screw up. So I'm not saying that's how Campbell views it, but there are some guys that are at that level that just say, let me do it. Right. Let me handle it. I'll be fine. And you hope Campbell can get to that point, but definitely could have used some more help, I think, in this last game. All right. I can tell people are a little annoyed that we're being negative after a playoff win. So let's get some old school Patriots defending the wall here as we look ahead to this Patriots-Broncos matchup. But first, Mike's got a word from some of our friends.
I do. Here's Prize Picks. I got to tell you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks because this episode and every episode of Patriots Daily is brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard, but in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every single weekend and elite basketball action almost every night, the action never stops, and Prize Picks lets you take control. They have a new feature now on Prize Picks. It's called Early Payouts, so even if your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. They also have new social feed features on Prize Picks, so you can share your Prize Picks with your friends, copy lineups from winners with a single click, and so much more. Prize Picks now offers stacks as well. You can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. So if you want to pick more on Steph Curry's points, 3-pointers, and assists, you can do that all in the same lineup. So download the Prize Picks app today, create an account, and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right.
All right, let's keep it going here. And the talk of Patriots world this week is, of course, Dan Orlovsky and his latest comments about the Patriots, talking about the Patriots win over the Texans and the way C.J. Stroud played. Look, C.J. Stroud did not play good in that game by no stretch. The Marcus Jones pick 6 is maybe the worst throw I've ever seen in an NFL game when you factor in the decision behind throwing that ball. Look, did you guys play 500 or jackpot growing up? Do you remember that game?
Yeah.
It looked like he was throwing up a mystery box on that one. But
was the play worse than running out of the back of your own end zone?
I did say worst throw. So
no, but I'm saying, so I'm giving you the two. Which one?
I might go back of the end zone on that one, Taylor. Good call. If you've missed it somehow by this point, Dan Orlovsky said, and he does give the Patriots some credit elsewhere in the clip. So to be fair, but the quote that stands out, even with giving them credit, is 31 other quarterbacks could have won that game and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he exactly used the term 31 others could have won that game at quarterback for the Texans, which by the way implies 31 others implies he's talking about the other 31 teams. So whoever we want to consider the Jets starting quarterback, whether that's Tyrod Taylor, Brady Cook, or Justin Fields, Dan
Your guy Brady Cook, come on.
Dan Orlovsky believes that quarterback would have won that game.
I love that you shouted out Justin Herbert as well, because it's like, yeah, dude, what are you talking about? We basically saw it last week with just like less egregious.
I know. I just think it's objectively funnier to use the Jets in that.
Yeah, of course.
How would Texans' third emergency quarterback Graham Mertz have done in that game?
Brian knows Graham Mertz is really one of the 31. That's where that. Yeah, we got great. Who was the other one we were talking before the game? Graham Mertz and it's a couple of our old favorite draft guys were on the Texans. We realized.
Oh, the Huzz, Elijah Huzzy.
Oh, that's right, Elijah Huzzy did not play in that game. But anyway, so I think, like, my 2 cents. Why are people being this way about the Patriots defense? They were kind of down the stretch. And that's true. And that's fair. And we all saw it. There were people tweeting during that Dolphins game. This defense is not ready for the playoffs. I think Mike Reese said it. It was very level-headed. I don't blame Mike. They didn't look like it. But you get Milton Williams back. You get Robert Spillane back. You get Kyrus Tonga back. And we had talked about this at the time. It wasn't a schematic thing. As we know now, people were questioning Zach Kerr at the time. He's called 2 outstanding games here. They just needed bodies back. So I don't know if people are slow to catch up to that or whatever, Brian, but the Patriots defense, to me, like, this is for real. And we're going to see what they do against Denver. It's another weak quarterback. Obviously, their run game hasn't been the same since J.K. Dobbins went out. He's returning to practice this week, but after having not played for 2 months, what are they really going to get out of him? The offensive line's the real deal, so we'll see if the pass rush can keep it up. I don't know that it'll look quite as good as it did against the Texans, but go back to September. We talked about this was a team that was going to be carried by its defense, and I think these last 2 games are more along the lines of what we expected. I don't think this is an outlier, what the Patriots defense is doing right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of credit goes to Vrabel and Zach Core, because since the playoffs started, they've got a lot more aggressive, right? And they've kind of leaned on their strengths. They're playing a lot more man. How much did we talk throughout the season of, lean on Carlton Davis, Christian Gonzalez, Marcus Jones, and those guys have played pretty great through the first 2 games here, and they're leaning on those guys. They're blitzing a lot more. Their cover 0 rate is up like 7-8%. They are sending the house, getting after these quarterbacks. And I think the big thing is they're doing this on first down. Their first down success rate this year in the regular season, it was 25th. It's up to 3rd out of the 14 teams in the playoffs, and that's pushing these teams behind the sticks. And now you're asking, the Chargers and this beaten up offensive line, or CJ Stroud, who's seeing ghosts, to then, move the chains from behind and pick up while the pressure is bearing down on them. So I think this kind of switch here from the postseason to be more aggressive has really paid off. Obviously, getting the guys' health back has made a big difference too. Tonga, big impact in the run game, and we talk so much about the run game down the stretch. So I think it's just all coming together really for them at the right time, and I do think they'll be legit. Now, they'll have a good test. This is the best offensive line they faced this week in Denver, really good unit. So how will they get after Jarrett Stidham? I know it's Jarrett Stidham, not Bo Nix. That changes things, but
you still got to pressure him.
Yeah, you still got to get after him. So I do think what we've seen, the Patriots defense can keep playing like this throughout.
Taylor.
I think it's a bit of a nuanced situation where the coverage has definitely had times where the quarterback play has hidden the fact that there are holes. There have been a lot of missed opportunities. Like, there were a couple of touchdowns that CJ Stroud could have had. And I think we could say the same thing for Justin Herbert. But at the same time, the secondary is making plays. Like, you got Christian Gonzalez playing at a completely different level, I feel like, through the playoffs in the latter part of the season than he was when we were entertaining the idea of, like, hey, if someone offers you the 2 first-round picks like Sauce Gardner, it makes sense to do it. But if he's playing like this consistently, I'm saying, all right, I'll pay you now. If you're making game-changing plays, you're ripping the cord, creating turnovers, hey, man, that's what wins playoff games. And obviously he's been a big part of that. So the secondary has made their plays, but I also think that a better quarterback, like if they end up playing a Matthew Stafford or Sam Darnold, I think it might be jarring at that point because Jarrett Stidham's probably not going to light them up. He might make his plays. I don't think he's going to light them up. And I think at some point along the line, if they make the Super Bowl, you're going to see a different version of the secondary and coverage. That said, I think this pass rush is for real because now that they are healthy, they've got all their defensive tackles. It looks more like what it looked like early in the year and what I think we all thought it could be. And part of that is who they've added past the point when we were making our predictions, like Corey Durden, Leonard Taylor. They have been two of the most efficient defensive tackles pass rushing in the entire NFL. And the only reason I even looked up those numbers was because it shows on the tape. Corey Durden's putting the pocket in people's laps, throwing guys. Leonard Taylor playing with phenomenal effort. And you can see why he's earned so many opportunities to actually play. And also the pressure schemes. They just look so well coordinated. And unlike when they weren't healthy, you're not seeing as many guys like run into each other on stunts and creating these massive lanes. Like they're condensing the pocket and playing with great discipline. So the coverage has stepped up its play, but also hasn't been tested to the level that I feel comfortable with them playing an elite offense. But the pass rush, I think, and the defensive front in general is going to be a problem throughout the playoffs because those dudes are playing really, really good football.
Mike.
Yeah, they're putting it all together here, right place, right time over the last 3 weeks. And again, I know Brian said it a bit, but this one here with the Broncos is going to be a different test with this offensive line in front of them. But they've been able to get after Herbert. They've gotten after Stroud. They made both of those guys who, at times through over the last couple seasons have been considered, top 5, top 10 quarterbacks. And now it's obviously going to be different going against Stidham, as we know. But it's really, I almost wonder if it matters whether it's Stidham or Nick's back there, because it's going to be this defensive front against that offensive line. And we've seen the Chargers dealing with injury at the tackle position. We saw the Texans dealing with injury. Obviously, Trent Brown didn't play last week. It's going to be different now with Bowles and with McGlinchey on the outside. But if you can, play some line games and get after them and scheme them up, which Taylor and I are going to talk about a little bit tomorrow on Pat's Daily, how they can really get after Stidham and make him uncomfortable. I think there's a chance you can have success again in this one because of the way that they've paired, a pass rush getting back after it with, as Taylor mentioned, some better cornerback play and defensive back play as well, where Gonzo looks like he's playing more aggressive. Carlton Davis comes down with 2 picks last weekend. So, and Marcus Jones, obviously, with the pick 6. So it's definitely right place, right time here for just about everybody on that side of the football. And, you're getting healthier. The interior defensive line has been solid. And obviously your linebackers have been your linebackers and, successful for the majority of the season. So, the way they've dialed it up, it's, they're kind of on the right track and getting hot at the right time, where basically everybody else, at least in the AFC, has gone on the opposite direction towards this end of the playoffs.
All right, let's get more into Patriots Broncos. But first, let's hear from some more of our friends, Mike.
All right, let me fill this up. We have our friends at Omaha Steaks.
Yes.
There they are.
The meats.
Juicy burgers.
Yes.
Look at that.
Meat time.
The meats are back, and the meats are ready for the postseason, the AFC Championship game out there in Denver. And starting this year off strong is easier and now more delicious with these premium portion proteins from Omaha Steaks. Stay satisfied, get energy, and fuel your routine with these premium prepackaged proteins delivered right to your door from Omaha Steaks. And right now you can taste the difference and get $35 off at omahasteaks.com with promo code Patriots at checkout. Omaha Steaks got me and my family through the holidays towards the end of December, and now are getting me and my family ready for the new year. And you can get in on Omaha Steaks right now as well. They are America's original butcher since 1917, a family-owned company as well. And they also carry mouthwatering burgers, chickens, porks, seafood, desserts, and easy-to-prepare comfort food. So let Omaha Steaks deliver high-quality proteins right to your door. Visit omahasteaks.com and get an extra $35 off with promo code Patriots at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code Patriots. Terms apply. See site for details. And we also got to talk about our new friends over at Ethos. And let me just pull this up. I know is the Ethos ad playing? Okay, it's playing out there. There we go. Let's see. I carry a lot of responsibility in this household that I live in right now, whether it's me, whether it's my wife. If something happened to one of us, there are real consequences, like rent payments, like everyday bills, like pet bills. I was just chasing my dog around. I don't know if you guys saw me go up and down and off the screen. That was because my dog was causing a ruckus. But if anything happened to us, she'd be out of luck. But now she's not because of Ethos. We took steps to protect our family financially by getting life insurance through Ethos. It is 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There is no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are also as low as $30 a month. So protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now. by going to ethos.com/all32. In as little as 10 minutes, again, you get that free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/all32. That's ethos.com/all32. ethos.com/all32. Application times and rates may vary.
All right, let's get back to it. Patriots, Broncos, and it is going to be former Patriot quarterback Jarrett Stidham under center for Denver.
Did the kid.
I know people's eyes kind of light up when they see this, and I get it. And look, it's an easier matchup, relatively speaking, with Jarrett Stidham than Bo Nix. But, and I mean this is no disrespect to Jarrett Stidham, and I mean this is no disrespect to Bo Nix. The Broncos were always going to be a team that was carried by their defense, no matter who's at quarterback. This team is about the defense making plays, the defense carrying them, the defense winning them games. It's up to the quarterback to not make mistakes. And Bo Nix did a good job of that, and he elevated them a little bit with some of his late game heroics this year. And whether or not Jarrett Stidham can climb to that next level is, I guess we'll see on Sunday. He hasn't started a game and he hasn't thrown a pass in 3 years, but it doesn't become Jarrett Stidham's not going out there. He's not playing corner. He's not replacing Patrick Surtain. He's not rushing the passer. He's not replacing Nick Bonito. Like the defense
Imagine they had a replacing Nick Bonito. That'd be nice.
Then I would feel honestly a lot more confident. I'd feel a lot more confident if Jarrett Stidham was playing edge rusher than Jarrett Stidham was playing quarterback. So I am more confident with Stidham and the Patriots' ability to win this game, but I don't think that Jarrett Stidham doesn't mean they suddenly win 45-10. I don't think it's that dramatic of an injury. That's at least how I feel. I don't know about you guys, Mike. How does it change the way you view the Broncos in this game with it being Jarrett Stidham instead of Bo Nix?
Well, you guys know me as far as how I feel about, some mid-level, mid-round quarterbacks in the NFL draft. I love these guys. I can't get enough of a guy like Jarrett
It's who
Stidham.
Mike thought he was going to be.
But exactly.
His brethren.
Jarrett Stidham. What does that mean?
When we do NFL draft, yeah, get out of here. Come on. Anyway, no, but in all seriousness, you kind of know what Stidham is, right? Like he's going to run your system. And I think that's why Josh liked him so much because, I feel like he's a relatively quick learner. You can hand him the reins at a moment's notice and he's going to play decent football for you. And, he did it in 2 back-to-back seasons with Vegas and with Denver where at the back end of the year, both teams sat their franchise quarterbacks for money reasons and Stidham went out there and played okay football, all things considered. He slung it around in the preseason a little bit, played okay. So, I mean, I'm with you totally here, Alex, where it's Denver's not, and even with Bo Nix has played, solid football. He made his fourth quarter comebacks, all that. We saw it even against Buffalo last weekend, but he's not necessarily a world beater here. And so, same with Stidham. I think they'll run their offense. He'll do what he has to do. They'll maybe rely on the run a little bit more just to try and keep the pressure off of him. But if they can keep him protected, which with this offensive line that we just talked about, I feel like there's a decent chance they will. I don't think he's going to turn into turn in a complete dud in this one. I think he'll be just fine. And if there's any coach in the NFL or a handful of them that you'd want to have to get a quarterback who hasn't thrown a football in a regular season game in 3 years ready for a game like this, it's Sean Payton. So if the stars kind of line up for it to be a fine performance, it's just a matter if the Patriots can get it done on the other end.
Brian?
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Sean Payton, to come up with a good plan. And the fact that he's got all week, right? It's not Bo Nix gets hurt on the first drive or even he's kind of questionable at 50-50 throughout the week. Like he's got all week to get Jarrett Stidham ready. He's probably going to come out with a really good opening script. And I think Stidham, I spent today watching his, 40 preseason dropbacks because this is our life now. We were watching preseason film. Right. I'm not saying that the preseason is very different than the AFC Championship game, but he was kind of slinging it, and you can see him very comfortable with their bootleg concepts, which they love to do. But I mean, it's Jarrett Stidham. He hasn't thrown a pass. Barth, you mentioned it. On Sunday, it'll be 749 days since he has last thrown a pass
Brian.
Every day counts.
In the NFL, which you want even more research, more than double the last quarterback to start a playoff game that span, which was, anyone know? Guess?
Wait, explain this.
So Jarrett Stidham on Sunday will be 749 days since his last attempt. He's the first, or it's more than double the longest span between pass attempts for a quarterback starting a playoff game since who?
It has to be somebody from that horrible Raiders Texans game, right? A few years ago.
Connor Cook.
I don't think it was Connor Cook.
It was Hoyer on the other side, right?
I don't think it was from that game. I think he was on the,
it's not Foles because he started a couple games at the end of the regular season that year.
He was on the Vikings. I don't know if that's when he started his playoff game. Yeah, it was.
Case Keenum?
Vikings, Packers, 2013 NFC wildcard. Joe Webb.
Wow, good
Joe Webb.
Joe Webb.
So
Joe Webb was 370 days between passes. Stidham is 749. So it has been a while since Jarrett Stidham has thrown a pass in the NFL. And again, I respect Sean Payton, and I'm not the biggest Bo Nix guy, but he has been good for them, especially on the run, on those bootleg stuffs and late in games. So I think it is going to be a level of drop off, which makes me more comfortable with the Patriots, especially with how their defense has been playing the last 2 weeks.
Taylor.
I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I agree with both of you. I think the biggest difference is going to be made in the second half of this game. I could completely see Jarrett coming out and having like a really good first quarter when you're still trying to get a feel for how they're going to call plays with him. And I also wouldn't be surprised if Sean Payton has something in the second half that does kind of throw the defense off and force them to readjust. But again, he hasn't thrown a pass in a real NFL game in a long time. He doesn't have that much work with these receivers. That's another big thing. He's basically going to be throwing to a lot of these guys for the first time, which actually, interestingly, so both Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant are hurt. Pat Bryant might have a concussion, and Troy Franklin has a hamstring injury. So actually, I wonder if Jarrett Stidham will end up throwing to more guys that he actually does have experience with, like throwing on the practice squad and stuff like that.
A lot of his preseason completions were to Troy Franklin.
Right.
That was top.
That's true.
That was his top preseason target, it seemed like.
Okay, well, that'll definitely be one to watch, but relatively little experience, at least recent experience, throwing to a lot of these guys. And I don't care who you are, unless you're like Drake May. If another team puts the pocket in your lap consistently, especially if you haven't played a lot of football lately, I don't care how long you've been playing, it's going to affect you. Is he going to turn into a pumpkin and start like throwing off his back foot and doing all this crazy shit that CJ Stroud was doing? I don't think so. But I think it'd be closer to a Justin Herbert, where he's just not seeing the field well. He's panicking, maybe kind of moving in the pocket and being herky-jerky rather than just standing back there, because he does show very good poise in that preseason tape and when he's been called into action. Like, I want to show Jarrett Stidham more respect than he's probably getting from a lot of people who haven't watched him, understandably. But I don't see Jarrett Stidham being the kind of guy where in the fourth quarter he's in any kind of real position to win this game, or at least not one where he's comfortable at all. Like, I think the Patriots will probably have his number and be harassing him by the time we get to the end of this game.
By the way, quick fun fact on Joe Webb. The second most pass attempts in the playoffs ever by a player drafted 199th overall in the draft.
Next Barth stats.
Yeah. Let's move on to and obviously we all know who number one is. Let's move over to the Denver defense. And this is a unit that's gotten a lot of hype. They've been very good, but it was one of the crossovers we did midway through the year. My hot take at the time was, because everybody was drooling over the Denver defense and they were on this run. My hot take at the time was, hey, yeah, the Denver defense is good, but Houston's is better. And I never wavered off of that. And I still don't waver off of it. I personally think I think the top end talent is comparable. It's not as widespread across the board. Like Houston, all 11 guys are just absolute dudes. And I think that there's some really elite players on this Broncos defense, some underrated players, but I don't know that all 11 guys you look at as being the kind of problem that the Texans have. Taylor, I know you kind of called out Riley Moss on the post-game show. That would be one of them. But I'll ask you guys this, and if you think that this is an unfair comparison and you want to change it up too, go ahead. But Brian, I'll start with you. Is the Denver defense, I am going to set the parameter that they're not as good as Houston, or not as much of a challenge, I should say, as Houston, but more of a challenge than the Chargers. Again, you can dispute that premise if you want, but within that premise, who's the Denver defense closer to as a challenge, Houston or the Chargers?
If I was going to tier them, I would put them in the Chargers tier, within Houston, a level.
Hines' tiers.
And I think, and I think that's from both a personnel and kind of scheme standpoint, because you mentioned the Houston talent is just on another level, and we talked a lot, they just kind of do what they do, where the Chargers really mix things up. And I think that's what you get more of the Broncos. They're going to mix coverages up on the back end. They're going to send these different pressure looks up front. So they're going to change the picture a lot on you. And I just don't think they're as talented as a Houston standpoint, but they still have plenty of good players, right? Like Pat Surtain in the secondary is as good as they come. A couple of good edge rushers. I do think, though, a little overrated, like the last month of the season, especially. You look at, like, I looked at the stats from week 14 to 17 because they didn't play starters in week 18, and then tack on the playoff game. Like, their EPA per play and EPA per dropback have dropped off to kind of the middle of the pack, and that's even not including that week 13 game, which Marcus Mariota kind of lit them up and was a 2-point conversion away from winning that game, and then Patriots would be at home this week. But so if I had to compare them to the defenses Patriots have just played, I would put them in the tier with the Chargers, with the Texans a level above them.
Taylor.
I'm still worried about their defensive front the most, I think. I'm actually trying to look up right now how they've looked since the span that Brian mentioned as a pass rush. They're still really good. They have the highest pressure rate as a team, and they have the 9th highest pass rush win rate. Since the 14 to 17, no 18, and then going to the playoffs. So that pass rush is still legit. And that's why I'm worried, because we talked about with the Texans, Sheldon Rankins is a solid player, but what you're scared of is Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter and Morgan Moses. Again, great job against Danielle Hunter. But I am worried about the fact that the Broncos have dudes all up and down their defensive line. Zach Allen is one of the best pass rushers on the inside in football. Malcolm Roach could start for a lot of teams. He's their nose tackle and kind of rotates. John Franklin Myers, we know from the Jets, he's a dude, very, very powerful. And then obviously Benito and Jonathan Cooper. Like, they have a very good defensive line, and they'll blitz you. Like, they'll send their linebackers. They're going to switch things up. And one thing about the Patriots pass protection that I worry about is picking up stunts, especially on the inside and with the rookies. So I think the back end definitely has more vulnerabilities. Like, Riley Moss is the type of glaring red flag that the Texans do not have. I also think Hufanga, I think there's some ways that you can exploit him. So I think they'll be able to throw the ball, but in terms of their run game, and if they get into obvious passing situations having to throw, I think that's where the real challenge is going to be, and where they scare me more than any team that we've seen this playoff so far.
Mike.
Yeah, I think too, when you look at the last couple of weeks, like, I think circumstances matter too with these two teams, where you look at the Texans on the road last weekend, they still brought it in an environment that they're not entirely comfortable with. The Broncos last weekend, and falling off the last half of the season, had 30 points put up on them against a bad Josh Allen last weekend at home. So on one hand, you go into Denver and you think, oh, they're going to be playing better at home. They're in their home stadium, what have you. But they were had last week by that Bills team. So I would still put Houston right above them. But I do still think, as Taylor mentioned, the pass rush is lethal. The back end might not be as great, but you have a former defensive player of the year in Pat Surtain, and you have one of the the top defensive minds in the sport in Vance Joseph calling the defense, and will do what he can to get after Drake May, who has shown vulnerability, as we've talked about already, protecting the football over the last 2 weeks. So they're still, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Houston's marginally better and they're, they've fallen to the center of the, I guess the football world as far as defensive rankings go. They're still legit, but I would say that Houston was the better, the more difficult challenge, and you got through those guys pretty handily. So last week.
I still think Denver's closer to Houston than to the Chargers. It's a real deal defense, and again, that top end talent to me. There are weak spots that can be had, and Taylor, I know you already kind of start digging in on that if you want to give us some of a breakdown, but their strengths are really, really good. And the biggest thing, and this is where the Patriots kind of got one on Houston last week, this is a really good tackling defense. There's not going to be a ton of hidden yardage in this game at all three levels. They've got linebackers that can flow from side to side. Hufanga is a really good tackler, a guy that's going to bring you down when he gets to you. So I think the Broncos are close to the Texans, but I still think the Texans defense is better.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, definitely more well-rounded. I think that's fair. When it comes to attacking them, the two big things for me early on, I still have some research to do. But when it comes to those one-on-one matchups, you have to beat man this week. A lot of the what the Broncos like to do is match coverages. And when you look at the kinds they play, they're really just trying to play man as much as humanly possible. Like, they play a lot of cover three, but it's cover three match where to one side it'll be like all man, and then you have zone. There's going to be some weaknesses there because if you can clear that man side, it's going to be hard for them to defend if you can clear out and get past the zones. Also, a lot of quarters in the red zone, especially. So there are certain route concepts that you can use to exploit those coverages. And again, if you got man coverage, I would just attack Riley Moss as much as possible. He is competitive. He has a ton of pass breakups, but he doesn't have a lot of interceptions. So if you're giving up a lot of explosives and you might get your hand on some throws, but you're not going to turn the ball over, I'll take that bet with Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte, Kyle Williams. If he can bounce back, we saw he can get open and win deep. It's just you got to catch the ball and be on the same page as your quarterback and get a good ball. But yeah, those are the big ones. You can manipulate a lot of their match zone schemes and then just really exploit those one-on-one mismatches when you get them.
I'll add one more on the Denver defense. Not necessarily a player you can exploit, but the most penalized defense in the NFL this year, both in terms of total flags and
Riley Moss.
Specifically, so Riley Moss had the most. Riley Moss had the most DPIs. They had the most DPIs of any team in the league. They also had the most offsides of any team in the league. Nick Benito was tied for second in the regular season. Now, they were a lot better about that last week. They only had one defensive penalty. It was a potentially huge one, the 3rd and 1 on the Bills' last drive of regulation to tie the game. They saves them at 3rd and 1. Sean McDermott, that fraud, probably would have used a tush push anyway, but whatever. But, using the hard using the hard count, we'll get to it. Using the hard count when it comes to Drake May, the receivers being physical, maybe May knowing where to place balls to try to draw some flags, things like that. They will commit penalties if you give them the opportunity to put them in position to commit penalties. So that's something else I'm looking at. All right, we'll wrap it up with this as you guys kind of chuckle. There's been a lot going on around the NFL the last couple of days that obviously we're still covering a playoff run. We haven't gotten to. So, whether it be coaching hirings, it's mostly been that, some rumors of like player movement, those sorts of things. We'll throw the national championship last night in there as well. It's NFL adjacent. Give me one non-Patriots take that you're hot on right now. Brian, we'll start with you.
Oh boy. Non-Patriots related.
Do you know what we do for a living?
Yeah.
You cover the league too. It's a part of it.
Well, I mean, Brandon Beane keeping his job was kind of crazy.
Yeah,
like that Bills roster is just not good. And
he didn't just keep his job, by the way. He got promoted.
Yeah, you got the president of football ops tagged on there. So I don't know. I don't know where Denver goes as a head coach. Taylor, we were talking about Gillette. It feels like they need someone who's kind of been there and done that. Like bringing in a first-time head coach feels kind of risky with Josh Allen and that team. But I mean, the talent on that team has really fallen off. Like you have Brandon Cooks and Keon Coleman as your outside wide receivers in 2026. Like they need a lot of talent on the defensive side of the football too. So the fact that they kept being around and he just scapegoated his guy he came in with too, Sean McDermott, like that was a pretty crazy breakup and solution to that problem, I thought.
Here's the bus. And
right
here's where Brandon Beane threw Sean McDermott right under it. And the fact that they apparently did this without having a name in mind, if it's me, I think there's one clear answer for the Buffalo Bills, and it's going to Josh Allen and saying, who do you want to be the head coach? You can't do anything else. Yeah, it probably should be Brian Daboll. I imagine Allen would be okay with that. Whether it's, and I was on Jungle or Trags the other day, we were talking about this. Whether it's Josh Allen, whether it's Joe Burrow, whether it's Lamar Jackson, these guys have to look around, and maybe less so with Jackson because the Ravens franchise has a better track record than the Bills or than the Bengals, but they got to look around and see Matthew Stafford potentially about to go to and win his second Super Bowl as well as an MVP with the Rams and say, well, he got himself out of a bad situation. That's what it took for him to win. If I want to win, do I have to do the same thing? And so if you're the Bengals, if you're the Bills, you have to keep the quarterback as happy as possible. Supposedly, Joe Burrow wanted Zach Taylor to stay and was vocal about that. And I do wonder if that's a part of the reason Zach Taylor still has his job.
Definitely.
And I'm not saying Josh Allen's going to go run and request a trade if they hire the wrong guy right now. But, a second coach that doesn't pan out, in 3-4 years. Now Josh Allen is more than 10 years in the league. He still hasn't won. Does he look at it and say, I need to go somewhere else if I really want to win? Or do I risk being Dan Marino, being a great quarterback without a ring? So the Bills have to really thread the needle on this one.
And then Barth becomes the biggest Josh Allen fan on planet Earth.
Oh, no, I want it to be the Raiders. Him winning with Brady would be unbelievable. That would be like the best thing. And I'll be rooting for I don't think Sean, like the difference is I do think Josh Allen's a good quarterback. I just don't love the way he's talked about. And I'm kind of ready to lay my sword down on that one because finally it seems like this was the one that broke the dam. And it seems like pretty universally people are recognizing what I've been saying for years. This guy's good, but why are we giving him all this credit when he hasn't won anything? But I do respect him and think he's a good quarterback. A little less so on Sean McDermott. I think he's a good defensive mind. I don't know if he's a good head coach. I will be rooting for him to win, especially if he ends up going to the Ravens, because that would be very funny.
That'd be funny.
Well, Sean McDermott won without Josh Allen, or did well without Josh Allen, and he did pretty well with young Josh Allen. So I feel like he deserves more credit than he gets. Like, he's not just Josh Allen's. He wasn't just Josh Allen's sidekick. Like, they were the best they had been in a long time. And I think that was directly because of Sean McVay. Obviously, Josh Allen took them to a different level where they're getting in the AFC Championship game every year. But to your point, the Josh Allen conversation is interesting because if you are going to give him power and you are going to say, we're going to listen to our quarterback, that's a real slippery slope, man, because this isn't like Russell Wilson. Think about him. He won a Super Bowl and was a big reason his team did win the Super Bowl. But eventually the team stopped liking him because everyone listened to Russell Wilson, gave him all this special treatment. And then the rest of the roster was like, well, what about us? And it created a division. Now, I think the Bills are much closer, but if you keep hitting your head against a wall, and Josh Allen is the one who's really running things and everybody knows it, like he's Tom Brady, or obviously Tom Brady didn't really get to be Tom Brady because Bill didn't listen to him. But Peyton Manning, I guess, is like the crown example of a player who basically acts as kind of an owner GM kind of situation. And one of the rare guys who actually has the vision to do it. Like, GMs are GMs for a reason, and players are players for a reason. Not everyone's Peyton Manning where you really do see the talent because of how you see the game. Really quick, because Josh Allen, who knows how he is as a talent evaluator? And also, frankly, when you talk about like a Joe Burrow, if he wants to kind of tell his front office what to do, I give him a little more leniency. He's gotten to a Super Bowl. He's a big reason they've been successful in the playoffs, and he's a cerebral quarterback. Josh Allen, I think there is a certain like cerebral part of the game that he still has not unlocked, where he will still make these back-breaking mistakes that directly lead to his team losing. Not always, because I think some of the crap he gets for the playoffs is poorly placed, but we haven't seen consistent years where Josh plays smart quarterback. And it's just like, oh, sometimes he reverts. It happens all the time. So I think the whole idea of let's give Josh Allen the reins and tell him like who he wants and all that, he hasn't done enough. I know he's been MVP, but these are individual achievements, and he has yet to get his team to a Super Bowl, much less win one. So I'm cool with it. I can't wait to see how it turns out, because I feel like the Bills are setting themselves up very badly, especially considering the GM, like you said, he's throwing people under the bus. He's also going on the radio and complaining when people very fairly are like, well, where are the wide receivers? What is your plan? And acting like Bill Belichick, like, oh, I don't need them. You guys are stupid. So like the power structure in Buffalo seems very, very shaky, and I'm cool with it, but it's going to be very entertaining to watch over the next few years.
I agree with a lot of what you said, and I'm not a big fan of the player GM, player owner thing. I think it's really been detrimental to the NBA, and I don't want to see it carry over to the NFL. That being said, if you're just going to look at it, all the risks you laid out about Josh Allen are fair. Now, I think Josh Allen is a little bit more of a grounded individual than Russell Wilson. We know he's a little,
he's not going to ask for an office.
Yeah, he's not going to do those weird sandwich commercials.
Chinese on the plane.
He's definitely not. He's further to the Peyton Manning end of the spectrum for sure.
Yeah,
like,
but so here's the Bills, and you raised some valid points, Taylor. So I'm legitimately asking you this: what is the bigger risk if you're the Bills? Empowering Josh Allen and him leading you in the wrong direction, or potentially alienating him and driving him towards wanting out?
It stinks because if they had a GM you could trust, then I'm fine.
But they don't.
Because like
it's a bad organization, it's bad ownership. They don't.
Because like not only are they not very talented, they have a ton of free agents. Some of the only good players they do have are about to hit the market, and they have no money. So, like, honestly, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to tell you, and it's a very good question. But, I mean, I would be fine letting Josh walk because, like, kind of like Sean McDermott, he hasn't gotten you to that next step. And part of that is because you haven't built around him. But at least if you get the GM, you can kind of have some kind of reset. Maybe it'll be hard, but you can trust that guy to rebuild it and put you in a good position. Right now, I don't know, because your GM hasn't shown that he can do the job he's supposed to do, and neither has your quarterback. So I have no idea. Maybe I guess right now Josh Allen is putting you further ahead than Brandon Beane is.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe you do listen to Josh, give him a couple weapons he wants and see what he does with them. And then if that doesn't work, then you move on. So I guess empowering Josh Allen in the short term probably is the right move, but it shows what a bad decision you just made because you have promoted someone who has been an active detriment and whom, if anything happens to Josh Allen, you're kind of screwed because he's shown he can't build around him.
Active detriment is the Bills' version of we all we got, we all we need, basically. And it has been for a long time. Real quick before we wrap it up, Mike and Taylor, I want you guys to get to stories too, but just to localize this real quick. Sean McDermott out, Joe Brady being called out, Josh Allen getting roundly criticized nationally for his inability to get over the hump. How do you think Stephon Diggs is feeling seeing all this? And he's in the AFC Championship. How do you think Diggs feels about all this?
Pretty good.
Fired up.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame him either.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me, baby. That's what he said.
As some of us said at the time, maybe he had a right to be frustrated. Maybe he's just competitive. As some of us said 3 years ago, maybe that was just the case. And I don't know. It's sort of kind of bared itself out here this year. So that's a quick Bills minute. Taylor, you got an NFL story you're hot on right now?
I've talked enough. I just piggybacked off Brian, so I'm good. I'm good.
Mike?
I'll throw the fact that the Steelers might actually hire Mike McCarthy as just like a crazy thing to do. Like I understand that, he's steadied the Packers. He won a Super Bowl there, and he sort of, I guess, steadied the Cowboys when he was really just a punching bag for Jerry Jones. But Mike McCarthy and the Steelers are known for, secure hires, if we will. They'll give a guy, they'll give him a ton of runway, a ton of leeway. And we saw it obviously.
Never fired a coach.
Yeah, with Tomlin and Cowher and those guys. But I just don't see Mike McCarthy being the answer for that team at all. He's fine, but he's not going to do anything more or anything less than Mike Tomlin did. Maybe bring a little bit more offense to the table, which we haven't seen there since Ben Roethlisberger retired. So maybe that's promising. But I think if you're the Steelers, you got to go a little bit younger than McCarthy, and you have to give someone, who you think is going to be there for 20 plus years, because that's how they like to do things over there. And I just don't see Mike McCarthy being that guy. And quickly on the Bills front and the coaching carousel, to just kind of put a bow and a thought on that, I wonder, and I'm curious to get your takes on this because of the circumstances, all your guys' takes, is do you think guys like Harbaugh and Stefanski are kicking themselves for taking jobs too early and not?
Yeah, a little bit.
Because, and I understand that you go in and you probably don't want to go into that situation because you look at the ownership and GM sort of tandem that they've created with Pagula and Bean. But it's also probably the biggest job, the best job out there right now, besides the Baltimore job, because you have a quarterback in place. So like Stefanski, that feels like that would have been a solid hire for Buffalo. And now he's in Atlanta and kind of has to rebuild that thing from the top. So it's not nearly as egregious of or I guess nuts, if you will, of a cycle as like college football is, the coaching carousel. But the timelines here are a little different, given that guys get fired later and later, and you're not afraid to move on from a guy even after the divisional round of the playoffs.
From a Patriots perspective, I feel like John Harbaugh and Todd Monken going to Buffalo would have been maybe the worst case scenario, because you have the John Harbaugh who gives you something similar to Sean McDermott. Obviously, Sean McDermott is more of a defensive mind, but like someone who can run the team and do all the CEO stuff, and a good offensive coordinator who kind of I think he got the raw end of the stick in Baltimore, frankly. That would have been, I would not have been happy if they hired those two.
And he likes to run guys, like he did with Lamar.
And he can balance it. Like if you go Brian Daboll, you're getting evil Josh Allen again. I don't think he's ever going to be a better version of the best version that he's been. Monken, I think, actually could elevate him. So, thank God.
Yeah, nothing's going to be better than Daboll. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
Mike McCarthy, Taylor, when we were talking with John Sardinas, New England Football Journal yesterday down at Gillette, like Mike McCarthy was the name that we kind of came up with maybe for the Bills, right? Like get a guy who's won a Super Bowl, been there, done that. Get him with Josh Allen, that West Coast offense. You can implement new elements there. So that, I don't know if have the Bills announced anyone in their search yet or done any interviews?
Well, no, because the report was yesterday. They were just coming up with name. Yesterday he got fired, right?
Oh yeah, they were like in a room coming up with candidate names. That's
they just wanted to be as disrespectful to Sean McDermott as they possibly could while kicking him out.
I'll
Admiral McDermott
to Admiral Job to be consistent with what I said with the Patriots when we were talking about whether they would or wouldn't fire Belichick. I think any NFL team you don't make that move without a plan. You don't fire a coach just to fire a coach. And maybe it's not a better replacement right away, but maybe it's, hey, this has gotten stale. We need to move on to the next guy. Here's a young coach out there that we think will develop, and maybe year one won't be better than the guy we have, but over time. Obviously, the initial plan for the Patriots didn't work out. They believed Gerard Mayo was the guy that would develop into that coach, and he didn't. And then they were lucky enough to get Mike Vrabel, but you never fire a coach and then look around and say, what's next? You got to have the plan before you push that button. And it sounds like the Bills very clearly didn't. We'll go through a couple of these and I'll give my take because people are kind enough to pay money. Any updates on Carlton Davis's concussion? Not as of yet. We'll see tomorrow if he's out on the practice field or not. So expect more on that tomorrow. If Drake May wins a ring or an MVP, where would he be among quarterbacks? I mean, is he not a top 5 quarterback right now already?
He is, and I think he stays there.
Top 3.
Yeah.
Top
I mean,
3, yeah.
maybe going into next year, we can start talking about him maybe getting into that best quarterback in the league conversation if he gets, I think, more so a ring than an MVP.
Who's the top 3? I think
right
Stafford, Allen, and Drake.
I still think Burrow's damn good. And I know he missed most of this year. I was saying, like, who are the best 3 in the league this year? Like, if I was going to start, well, no, because if you do start a franchise, I wouldn't take Stafford because he's old. Like,
I'm still putting Mahomes in the conversation every day.
Yeah, you love Mahomes. We know that. We got to see what he looks like when he comes back from the knee.
He's only a 4-time Super Bowl champion.
I think I would. Yeah, I would replace. That's
okay, but again, how are we?
I
doing
should put
this
Mahomes ahead of. I should put Mahomes ahead of Josh Allen. I think that's disrespectful.
Are we doing it off resume or off current? Because he's also hasn't he been like the worst deep ball thrower in the league for the last 2 years?
Josh Allen?
Yeah.
No,
Mahomes. Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
I know Allen's deep ball has fallen off too, which I don't know what this is. All these quarterbacks deep balls fall off, but
I think that Mahomes. I think Mahomes has been much more personnel based. Like I've seen so many good deep balls from him that don't get caught or like something stupid happens. Whereas Josh, I see so many times where he chucks one up and it's not even close.
Allen's personnel sucks too.
Yeah, it does. But I also think that Mahomes, I can't say he did more necessarily with what he has, but yeah, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds. I haven't watched enough to make it really.
Well, this is an off-season topic. Finally, anyone we're rooting against the Bills getting as a head coach? Bill Belichick would be the one. That would just be annoying. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see him.
You really
there.
think that would
I don't know. I don't.
No.
But that would be the one I really wouldn't want. Dayball would. I'd understand it, but like Dayball would annoy me because I think that's probably the best hire at this point.
Ooh, I would love that. Can you imagine Bill Belichick with Brandon Beane as the GM?
Well, that's exactly why. Even if they wanted
that would be hilarious.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen. He'd kick
what I
right out of there.
Just so we get the ultimate anti-Barth team is Mike McDaniel in Buffalo.
Well, we talked about this as an OC. That would be a great hire. I've said I think he's a good OC. But Brian, if you're going to go that route, it's what happens if, like we talked about earlier, Josh Allen forces his way out, demands a trade, leaves the Bills, and goes to the Niners. Now that would require Kyle Shanahan actually wanting to add a good quarterback, which he's refused to do time and time again. Had a chance to go with Tom Brady and said, "No, thanks, I'll pass." That would be the really interesting one, is if Josh Allen goes to the Niners with Kyle Shanahan. But he's going to keep – and Brock Purdy's fine. Mac Jones is fine. He's going to keep going with fine quarterbacks and losing in the playoffs because that's all he wants.
That's a little disrespectful to Purdy. I'm sorry. He is one of the best deep throwers in the NFL.
He's a fine starting quarterback.
You just can't say he's fine when like
he's fine. I should say he's a fine starting quarterback. Like he's not a guy you're going to be like, oh, do we need to, like what the Texans are doing with CJ Stroud right now, right? Do we pay him? Do we blah, blah, blah? Like you're not going to do that. He's fine. But I don't know. We were just talking about who are the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. Not one of us said Brock Purdy.
I mean, okay, I didn't say he was that.
So,
but like, I think fine is, I think he's better than fine.
He's
fine as a starter.
10 to 15 range, I would probably
exactly.
say.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's what I meant by fine.
Just like Mac Jones.
No, like the Mac Jones discourse I thought that was crazy that they would
3-0.
3-0. Brock Purdy is so much better than Mac.
And Kyle Shanahan was a coach of the year candidate. Let's remember that.
Kevin Stefanski won it twice. How'd the other 5-6 years in Cleveland go?
Stefanski got boned when we know it. He should be the Bills.
I know it's a bad organization. I'll wrap up with my non-Patriots take, which is slightly Patriots adjacent, which is also quarterback take. Fernando Mendoza with Tom Brady kind of in his ear as like his quarterback guru is going to be really cool. And I hope the Raiders don't blow it. I like Fernando Mendoza. He's fun to watch. Just his personality is great. He's somehow a mix of Tim Tebow and Rob Gronkowski. And I think he plays the position a fun way. And like any young quarterback, he needs refinement, but the way he plays stylistically, I think that Brady can really, like, that's somebody that Brady can really work with, as opposed to, Brady's not going to be able to coach up a guy who runs a lot, because that's just not how he played the game. A lot of what Brady knows, I think, is going to be transferable to Mendoza. It doesn't mean Mendoza is going to become Brady, but I think that's a cool pairing. Let's see who they get as the coach. That's another spot I'd really like to see Brian Daboll, honestly. But congrats to him for the win last night. A great season. Cignetti might be the best coach in the sport right now, pro or college. And I'm looking forward to seeing Mendoza in the NFL.
I think you still need to surround Mendoza with talent, but just personality-wise, he seems like someone who would elevate his head coach. Like, if he had to deal with kind of an average, like, whatever head coach, I feel like he is such a leader that he would still give that organization direction and simply would not let someone who was incompetent, like, walk all over him and just be able to really, like, put a bad effect on. I mean, a head coach still a head coach, but I do feel like he's, especially when he has Brady in his ear and is a little bit older, I love him as the face of a franchise.
As a face of the organization. But to your point about surrounding him with talent, and look, they've got a ways to go. Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers ain't a bad start.
No, it's not. No, it is not. No, it is
really not. They got to get a receiver.
Jack Besh, honestly, feels like a guy. Those two, I think they could be electric. Like a great possession receiver. Mendoza can put the ball wherever he wants. Like that, I think is great news for Jack Besh.
Yeah, I mean, Alec Pierce would make some sense.
Alec Pierce.
I
keep hearing that the Colts are going to get rid of Pittman and give Pierce a contract, and I'm sitting here like, what the hell? Please don't do that. Well, I've very much been looking forward to maybe Alec Pierce as a Patriot.
If you watch Indiana, Charlie Becker is just like
Charlie.
Alec Pierce 2.0. So if they don't sign him in free agency, we can do 2027 draft Charlie Becker for you and get Alec Pierce 2.0.
I'm down.
So anyway,
I saw him catch a touchdown, and I was like, is that Alec Pierce? Okay, fantastic.
He just mosses somebody every week, and he's not.
Big white man Moss.
He didn't follow Cignetti from JMU. He was like a 2-star. He just kind of came out of nowhere, and he just mosses somebody every week. That's all he does. He's a fun player. All right, we're well over an hour. We're going to wrap it up here. We'll have more. Mike, Taylor, what do you have coming up the rest of the week?
Tomorrow, I'm going to be breaking down the Patriots' interior defensive line. Those guys have been a huge force in the dominant performances that we've seen from the Patriots in the playoffs. So talking about how they've affected the run defense, how they're winning one-on-one and just collapsing pockets, and also how the scheme has helped create some opportunities for those guys. So that's the big one coming tomorrow at 10 a.m., bright and early-ish.
And me and Brian will have our recap coming on Thursday. Mike has more at SI.com. Taylor Moore, CLNSmedia.com, Brian on Pat's Pulpit, myself on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Also, new Catch 22 with Evan Lazar coming tomorrow morning on Patriots.com. So, big week, championship week. Gear up. We'll be talking to you throughout the week. But until the next one, for Brian Hines, Taylor Kyles, and Mike Kadlick, I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.